hopefully the Pistons will make him regret that move. In the meantime, word that Tyler Myers, big defenseman out in Vancouver, there's actually multiple reports that the Red Wings have made an offer, and those reports imply that Vancouver has said yes to whatever the offer is, and that Tyler Myers, who's 6'8", 230, and actually has some mobility, but he's older.
Is that big? 6'8"?
That it's up to him to waive his no-trade clause. It appears as though the Red Wings aren't the only team expressing an interest, and it sounds as though Myers is just waiting to see what his options are. But he could be a Red Wing.
He could. Massive defenseman that doesn't play that physical, but he's a defensive-minded defenseman. He's not going to get, I think he's got 8 points this year. I feel like his name has been associated with the Red Wings for years, and it hasn't happened. I don't know if this is legit or not. I know Jaron Dreger had this report. He's a $3 million cap hit for this year and next year. Or at least that's what he counts against the cap.
It's not a lot of money.
It's not a lot, and it's a guy that would be – he's not a top 4 defenseman. He'd be a bottom 2 defenseman for the Red Wings. So would that make sense? It might. When you're looking to shore up the back end of it, I'd like to make a bigger splash somewhere. But, I mean, I'm interested. There are other players that we've talked about. The defenseman from St. Louis we've talked about, Falk, Ristolainen from Philadelphia is another name that has been mentioned as possible interest, and he's $5 million. So interested to see what shakes out here in the next week, because I think the Red Wings are going to be very active. This report's interesting because he puts it out there that it's like already kind of there, just waiting for him to approve. And I'm not sure if that's the case.
I know, right? The story, and there's multiple reports, and seems to be starting to get circulated as if it's a fact. And I'm a little hesitant. But the idea that, okay, the two teams know what they trade. Vancouver's cool with it. Detroit's cool with it. TikTok trade deadlines. Is it next week? It's late next week, isn't it?
It's March 6th.
So
next
I'm not
Friday,
mad at the player either if he doesn't want to agree to go to Detroit right away, because you're at a point in your career where you've earned the no trade clause. If he basically says no to Detroit and that's the only offer, then I'll get mad at him. But I don't mind him sussing out where else he can go. At 36, I would imagine, is it a chance to win the cup that he's after? Because one of the things that I was reading a little bit about him, he is really valued in the Vancouver room as a leader and a guy that's helping young players. But if he can help Detroit, a 6'8", those that have always said they want size on the blue line, this is it, although he doesn't throw it around.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah,
so you want size, but you want size that actually will move people around.
But he can skate.
Yes, he can, but he's not offensive. He's not an offensive-minded guy. But I don't mind if your third pair of defenseman is a guy, stay-at-home defenseman, I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. And I could be fine. He'd be an upgrade over what they have in the bottom pair. Okay. As long as the price isn't too much, right? But I can't imagine it is. He doesn't cost that much in terms of salary. Signed through next year, like I said, $3 million. I'm open. Just what does it cost? I don't think he's not a guy that I imagine costs you a prospect. And if it's a draft pick, how high is that draft pick?
Well, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong on this. You tell me, am I wrong? If they do make a trade, I feel like we're going to be scrambling, Google searching who they gave up.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could very well be doing that, or if it's just a draft pick and it's just a draft pick. But yeah. But we'll see how this goes. It's nice to hear that there are at least names in motion here. There are players that we're starting to see some trades happen, and with the deadline, I believe it's Friday. I think it's that March 6th, next Friday. So yeah. We'll see how involved Steve Yzerman gets. But as we've said, Yzerman is pretty tight-lipped about what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that the reporting is that this is, they're just waiting on approval from the player, I'm a little skeptical of that.
Well, whenever I see this, I go, the source has to be out of Vancouver. and I suppose it's possible that the source could be out of Detroit, but all the feedback we get, all of it, is that is a tight run ship down there and nothing gets out. And it might be because nobody knows but Steve.
Right.
He might have an inner circle, but when it really comes right down to it, or they just, he's laid down the law and it's a given. Myers has never played for the Stanley Cup. And, the Red Wings have a shot. They don't have a great shot. If somebody better comes along and makes an offer, he may choose to take that team. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I think the Red Wings are any kind of favorite. But if that's his goal, he would have a shot here in Detroit, and he, doesn't have one in Vancouver. So Tyler Myers, the name, look him up. Could be a Detroit Red Wing at some point. The other thing I want to get into here real quick is we haven't really talked much about the release of Tyler Biadasz, the center for the Commanders.
Yep.
Are we getting to the point where we shouldn't worry about them getting a center? It's just a matter of them finding the right one? Because it feels like suddenly there are a lot of free agent centers out there.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to land a center in free
veteran.
agency. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue anymore. Because there are so many that are on the market right now.
Yeah. Guys get released for reasons, okay? It's not like great players don't just get outright released for no reason, but sometimes it can be a cap thing. Sometimes it can be an injury thing that you got to take a chance on. I was looking at the market values for centers and where some of the most recent centers show up on Spot Track. So what they think these guys will get in the open market. Tyler Linderbaum is listed at a market value of 17.7. Some people think he'll get more than that. Connor McGovern, who is the center at Buffalo, 16.2. Cade Mays, there's been some internet scuttlebutt, but nothing confirmed that Detroit was interested in him. He's at 12.2. Cushenberry, the guy from Tennessee that just got released, comes in at 7.1, the fifth best center in terms of contract on the market. They do not have a number yet for Biadasz. But now supply and demand, right? Everybody who releases a center needs a center. So it's kind of it's a net zero in terms of, there's another guy out there, but there's another team who needs a dude. You don't have to get the best guy. You just have to get somebody that's good enough for you and better than the what they had there last year. And we've talked about Glasgow, probably better deemed as a guard, but he seems like a likely cut candidate. Then he can go sign as a guard somewhere else. But hey, look, you're worried less. Kang, you feeling good about what's going to happen at center?
Yeah, and I do feel better. I do agree with everything you just said, though, about these guys are getting released for a reason, right? But that doesn't mean their career's over or they're done, and we have to know what the reason is. I think the biggest reason, if it's injury, the Lions have to do their work, right? And figure out, hey, is this going to be a lingering issue or was that just the end of the year? But I feel comfortable with the fact that there's more options. And I think what you want is options as the Lions, because you don't want to be backed into a corner where, like, what do we do here? We're not going to get Linderbaum. Do we have to draft a replacement? Do we have to move Ratledge over? I think you want options, and they're getting options.
Yeah. Somewhere out there, there's an injured player that's going to get released that's going to have a great year next year at some position. And so you just got to be smart and try and find that guy. All right, speaking of which, Birchie Kid at the Combine all week. The question is, who's the perfect guy at 17 in the first round, perfect guy at 18 in the second round, the perfect guy at 18 in the fourth round? Hear what he has to say next here on 97.1.